Welcome to another episode of Epoxy and Butyl Tape. In this episode, I'm going to be doing a bunch of small projects and repairs, each of which would not be long enough to have its own video. Starting with the galley area, specifically a paper towel holder. So I did this project several months ago, but I did get a request, so here it is. So originally, I had a half-inch PVC pipe, which I hung from the grab rail with some bungee cord. But then I upgraded to a piece of solid brass tubing with some end caps. And all it is a thin piece of bungee wrapped around the rail, threaded through the tube, tied off in a knot, and then just wrapped around there, like so. So it's wrapped around that end and then just hooked over the end here. And in addition to just having a place that's out of the way to hang this, the main benefit is that this is always being pushed against a rail. So this will not unwrap as often happens on a boat. And that has worked very well. And the next project will be a binocular box. So when I built this little storage area several years ago to match the nav station that I built, I put in this little platform hook thingy, or whatever you want to call it. And my binoculars do fit in there, although not very stable. And I don't really need any hooks here. I don't hang anything off of this. I have hooks all over the boat. So I think a full-on box would be a much better idea here, maybe about this high. And this is just one piece that comes off with these two screws, which I intentionally did that way to be able to access the back of the depth finder screen, which is on the outside bulkhead. Okay, so I've cut this piece off, and I have some scrap teak here. We'll see if we can make a box out of it. And I'm thinking that something like this added to that should work. And now that's all epoxied together. I purposely left it open here on the sides because it matches up with the sides of the storage unit. And that looks good. Just need to varnish now. And now that's been varnished and screwed in. And lastly, I like it. Next, I'd like to do a little bit of a storage modification under the sink. And I'm a big believer in segregated storage where you can separate the things you have stored, like this shelf here for the water tank and battery bank. There's storage underneath, as well as the one I built here under the stove. There's storage under this. Lift that to get in there. So here under the sink, I have an idea to do something. So I made a cardboard template. And now transfer that cardboard template onto a piece of thin plywood, as well as screwing in some wooden strips here as cleats. This one to the bulkhead, and one here right through the fiberglass. And that cardboard template will fit in there something like this. The next step was to glue on another layer of thin plywood. This one has an oak veneer on it, essentially what I have here. Also a little side piece. So this, of course, goes on this side, and that'll get screwed down to the cleats. The other half is removable and just kind of just plops in there like that. And I really like the way this is coming out. It's a nice flat surface to store things on, but at the same time I can just lift this up to get under here and under the drawers here where there's a lot of space to store stuff. And also this clears the handle. And after a little bit of varnish and screwing in this side, The removable part just lifts up and out, and you can access all that space under there, and then just goes right back in like that. Done. Okay, I need to address an extremely stiff throttle lever. And I believe the issue is the cables themselves. So when I purchased this boat, it came with a pedestal, which I removed in favor of a tiller, and I had to mount a throttle lever because of that. So the former owner also gave me a set of throttle cables, brand new, which were extremely long, but I used them anyway because my old cables were stiff. So I installed those, and you can see here that they're all coiled up, which is the reason I believe that this is stiff, because all those coils are causing more friction than needs to be. So here's one of my old cables. I lubed it up by putting some lubrication down inside, and now it functions much smoother. So I'm going to install these and see if that makes a difference. Simple enough to remove the lever and take off the cables. And I've got those extra long cables off and coiled up. These little end fittings actually go to the pedestal, which I won't need. And the shorter ones, which are the original ones, are installed here at the lever. Relatively simple. Just screw on those brass fittings and put into the hole, which are held in place with that little cotter pin on each of them, and then threaded through to the engine. One goes to the throttle, and the other one goes to the gearbox. This is the only one I had a little bit of trouble with, and that's because when I removed these the first time, I had to actually cut this little block and the cable itself because they were seized into each other. Ended up drilling a hole in the block and tapping new threads, but the cable itself was still too short since it had been cut. And I accommodated that by just extending these two slots, opening them up, and now it reaches and it seems to work good. And put the lever back on, and that is nice and easy. And all functions as it should. Perfect. And the next project will concern the Dodger. So it's always a good idea to have a handle or a grab rail mounted to the side, so that as you make your way past the Dodger on the side deck, you have something secure to hold on to. My thoughts are to mount this parallel with the tow rail rather than the top of the Dodger, since that's on a slant. And now I've got that frame drilled, as well as putting in some stainless steel grommets here. You see they line up with the hole. These grommets are actually very hard to press in, so I find myself drawing little lines in there and then just clipping little cuts into it, so that when you hammer it down, it actually spreads apart. Kind of like the way that one did. And the last part was to install the grab rails themselves. Here they are. And they are rock solid. This is an improvement I should have done long ago. So I'll just have to cut these flush and then probably just put a cap nut on there. And there it is. Done. And the next project is about as easy as they get. It's literally peel and stick. So this is heat and sound insulation. And while I've already insulated the engine room and the bottom of the cockpit floor, there is room for more. So I'll probably put on another layer on there, as well as under the cabin sole here. And also this aftmost floorboard, which goes here. I usually take those out when I'm on hard. I think I'll put some layers on there. This little Yanmar engine, while they're extremely reliable and fuel efficient, they are loud. So I'll take whatever I can get. And after adding a second layer, I have over an inch thick of sound insulation. And I typically use this aluminum tape made for hot air ducts. It seems to do very well in the marine environment to do the edges. Also, I've put a second layer here on the forward part of the engine cover, as well as in here. There were actually holes in there, so I actually put 2 layers in there and along the edge there. And here's that floorboard. I did that. And under the cabin sole, I think that should make a big difference. And there we have it, a bunch of easy projects. So these were little to no cost, with maybe the exception of the grab rails, which were about $40 each, and the sound insulation, which was about $18 for the roll. But I have been knocking out a bunch of small projects, try to do a couple a day, video what I can. I fixed this wind instrument, which never worked, finally. Put on new deck fills for the diesel and for the water. New GPS antenna, and for the engine. I descaled, I put on a new anode, and I'm adjusting the valves. But that's it for now.